Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Saturday, March 12th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The spring game is in 35 days. Yes, 5 weeks away. The Notre Dame game is in 175 days. The game against Michigan in 259 days. Earlier in the week, you heard from OSU head coach Ryan Day and new defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. Today it's time to turn to the offense and the Buckeyes offensive coordinator Kevin Wilson. Much like Jim Knowles on yesterday's show, Wilson is a fantastic interview. You get a lot of detailed answers from him, which sometimes meander around a little bit as he sort of explains some concepts, but which always end up being very informative, so I think you're really going to enjoy this show, just as I think you probably did with the Jim Knowles show on yesterday. So, as always, these clips are courtesy of the Ohio State University Athletics Department. And we're going to start where it always starts on offense, up front with the offensive line. As soon as the Rose Bowl ended, Paris Johnson was penciled in as the starter at left tackle in pretty much everyone's first guess depth charts for 2022. That's a spot you likely probably expected him to be playing this year as well, since he was a 5-star recruit back in the day. Is that the spot where Wilson thinks that Paris Johnson belongs for sure?
I don't know. I mean, because, you'd like to think athletically, but at the same time, that's the quarterback's blind spot, and so it's really, you need somebody who's going to be very, he's a tremendous athlete, tremendous upside. He comes in highly rated in the recruiting services and the skill set, but much like Nick Petit or Thayer and those guys, Josh Myers, I believe he started a lot of games this year. He don't play the first 2 years. It takes a couple years. Paris has already played a lot in year 2, but it's inside, so he's got some experience, but now it's different stresses. So I just think you go through spring. I know Justin will do a great job with him, but we'll need a consistent player out there in between he, DeJuan, or Zen, or even Donovan Jackson. If he needs, the most consistent player will probably be at left tackle. And right now, he's starting there with the opportunity to prove he's going to be that guy. You would expect him to. Ball's in his court.
There are other spots available on the offensive line and all over the two deep. So who are some of the other young guys who have a chance to contribute this year on that offensive line?
I thought Josh Fryer would be in the mix, and he's limited. So I kind of felt he was, kind of time to get in there. And I think Zen's come along nicely. Jacob James has had an outstanding offseason, gives us some good depth inside. But there's probably a little bit of separation from the 5 based on experience and talent. But again, to big sign in the weight room or in the training room, durability versus ability. If they can be here every day, practice every day, get better every day, they'll have chances to be our main guys. But time's going to tell.
Here's an example of a great answer from Wilson. What kind of challenge is there to facing a defensive coaching staff in practice who you don't really know that well? And how does that help prepare them for this fall? Sometimes
I think you can get, real anal as a coach specifically. Okay, what's going in? Through time, and it really started with Coach Spurrier's background with Coach Stoops. If you put a play in, you better be able to block zero, when they blitz everybody, bare front. You better be able to throw it if they drop 8. Play cover 3, cover 2, cover 1, whatever. I mean, so if you put a play in, you better have your answers versus say, well, I want it in just against this look. No one plays the same looks. No one plays static football, standing still. So, we were saying the first couple of days here, we want to do some walkthrough, and we really didn't know what they were doing. So we're watching Oklahoma State cut ups like, okay, what do they play to this formation? What does it look like? What's their alignment? And as we go, I guess we'll get a better feel, but it appears early that it's, just a lot of multiple looks which I think is what really great defenses do. They have the ability to be gap sound, stop the run, but they make the offensive line and quarterback work every play. So there's a lot of movement, but there's still gap sound. There's a lot of alignments, but the coverage picture changes. So the quarterback thinks he's got one coverage, ball is snapped, here comes people moving at him, and the coverage is changing in your ability to think on your feet. And so it appears there's going to be a lot of, quote, moving parts. I know he would say they got to make sure they stay sound as they do that. But for me as an offensive coach, we get attacked very aggressively on Saturday from defensive teams, multiple coverages and schemes and fronts and movements and twists and blitzes. So I think the more stuff you see, you get immune to it. The more you stress the offensive line, the more you stress the quarterback in practice, the better Paris and those guys will become, and the better CJ and Kyle and Devin will become. So I'm looking forward to it. It looks like it's got a chance to, he's got a lot of tools in the toolbox, it looks like.
There was a lot of talk this week about what it means to be a great teacher. So what does Wilson think makes a great coach and a great teacher?
I would have said 15 years ago, the ability to keep it simple, to understand. I always felt in my world I wasn't that good a player, so I kind of knew some things I had to do to give me a chance. And I knew I think I heard Marshall Falk a few years ago when a guy ran some 4.2 something at the combine and say, well, the best way to slow a guy down is make him think. So I think a great coach can give coaching points, but allow his players to, in time, understand it where they're not thinking. I tell my players should tell you that if they're thinking, they don't know. The thought is they know what they're doing. They know it's this route at this depth, or it's this block, or it's this call. If they're thinking about it, they don't know. So I would have told you a long time ago, to be a great teacher, it's your ability to keep it simple, to give your kids a chance to play as hard as they can play, as fast as they can play, be sound. Not so simple it's vanilla and easy for the defensive coaches to defend. I would tell you now, too, it's going to, you better have the ability to connect. And, for example, like I explained the other day, we call a pass play that's called naked when the quarterback's by himself. I go, why do we call this naked? And some of the answer and I was just trying to help them understand why it's called this, because I thought it would help them, because I think we're in a generation where kids want to know why we're doing things, or why do you call it that way, or why are we doing this drill? Why do we run? You guys watch us in warm up and everybody's got a ball. Why do we have a ball? Well, we're doing it so when you run, you're not running with the ball loose. We're trying to cheat a little bit and get ball security while we're stretching. And so I think one of the abilities now to be a great teacher is your ability to connect with kids and invest time with them. So the ability to keep it stupid or simple, multiple looks, but they'll keep it simple. Stupid motto, KISS, keep it simple. But also the ability to connect and get people to rest. I think if our players believe we're getting them better and you're spending time with them, you can push them. But if they don't believe in you, they don't think you're getting any better, it's hard to coach a young man.
CJ Stroud has a ton more experience than he did last year. Of course, he entered last season without ever having thrown a college pass, and now he's returning as a Heisman finalist. So how much does that change things to have an experienced returning starter at quarterback this year?
I think, again, we can, so much of our game's been done from the sideline. We're making calls. I think can be more on his plate where he can handle the ability to adjust plays and protections, where sometimes we would do that. So the player could just keep his eyes on the defense. Sometimes, again, the more we make him think, the more we, and that's just hard to take the right drop, throw the ball in time, because I'm thinking about all these checks I got to make. But he can handle a lot mentally. He is extremely gifted and talented, but he's equally as smart and equally aware on the field. His ability to see and put it all together is uniquely high. So I think we can just put a little bit more on his plate. I think Ryan's got a phenomenal amount of confidence in his ability to trust him to get protections right and get the ball out to the right guys and not force it. I was thinking, though, as a veteran player like him's got 1 year under his belt, 13 games. And Jackson, our veteran players are third-year guys. Mitch Rossi's back in a sixth year, and I think Matt Jones is a fifth year, but it's like if you're a four-year guy now, you seem like your grandfather around here. It's like our veterans are second-year starters. And that being said, to me, it's exciting about maybe how good CJ could be, because you'd like to think here's a guy that started high, but you like to think there's a lot more in that ceiling. And I think as he goes with Coach Day this year and Coach Dennis, it'll be interesting, Coach Fitch, how far we can push he and some of because I think our most gifted, talented players, a lot of them are very, very, DeJuan got 1 year of football starts. Paris, 1 year of football start. Luke Whippler, 1 year. All of them going to be outstanding players. But where can we go as year 2, year 3 veterans and make another big jump and maybe do the things that the truly great teams start to become?
We're going to end with a couple more on the offensive line, because that is a very, very hot topic with Wilson. One of the leading contenders for the open right guard job right now is Donovan Jackson. That, of course, was where Paris Johnson played last year. But if Paris Johnson moves to left tackle, ta-da, the right guard job is open. And Donovan Jackson was someone that they were looking to get involved very early last season. So what has Wilson seen in Jackson so far?
Well, when he showed up, and then he was about as athletic as most I had personally seen with an offensive line. He's not maybe 6'6", but I had a guy who plays for the Niners named Trent Williams. I'd tell you he's probably the best player I've ever been around. He still is like that. He's ridiculously. Donovan's not there, but he's got some skills that are like, wow, like that's not an O-line skill. That's an athletic skill. He showed up with skill. He showed up with a lot of maturity. Like he doesn't practice like a first-year guy. He doesn't practice like a guy just got here out of high school. He's not practicing now in spring like this is my first spring. I mean, he's a very mature kid, very, very smart. Like we're talking CJ. He's got a high cognitive ceiling, but he's got a high skill set. And he's got some developing to do, but he is as talented, as gifted, with as high a ceiling as anybody walking down on this field today. He's got a chance to be a real player.
Now, you remember they tried to get Donovan Jackson involved as a tight end last year, which is really unusual for a non-early enrollee freshman offensive lineman to be someone who they're looking to get on the field pretty much right away. So what did he look like last fall as a true freshman?
And that's why we went to the few snaps. We did the big package in short yardage. He played tight end. We were trying to get him on the field some. And I think, probably just green enough. He didn't get spring ball, but he was good enough to get in the mix. And at the same time, those guys probably a little bit more time on task, probably a little more trust in those guys. But I don't think I would have not have had, we got to play Donovan now. Don't run this play or run this protection. To me, I wouldn't have blinked if he was in the game and would just play no matter who we were playing, when we were playing. I thought he probably would have played at a high level. And I expect him as a first-year potential starter right now to be a guy that plays at a very high level. He is a very gifted, talented player, and not just physically. He's got some stuff in his heart, and he's got a chance to be a special player.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Kevin Wilson is always one of our very favorite interview subjects. You always get really interesting answers from him. Stuff that, answers your question. He will answer your question, but also stuff that kind of makes you think sometimes. So really good stuff, as always, from Kevin Wilson. So hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you did, I have good news. There was a lot of Kevin Wilson earlier this week, so we're probably going to have another show with him at some point in the next week. I'm not sure. We haven't figured out the schedule for spring break week yet for Ohio State, but at some point in the next week, you will probably get to hear a little more from Kevin Wilson because he had a lot to say on a bunch of other topics as well. So you'll have that to look forward to. But for now, thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.